Looks like people are starting to roll in. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the medical cannabis community, and thank you so much for taking the time to attend our second webinar, where our focus today is to talk about cannabis and technology and how those systems support the cannabis industry and all of the successes that it has been experiencing. The medical cannabis community is a media-based organization out of Chicago where we focus on raising awareness for cannabis by building online communities, multimedia educational content, and facilitating market research initiatives such as studies, polls, and surveys. Today, we brought together a panel of experts in the technology space to help educate us on the very fascinating and different technologies that exist and how they are helping to revolutionize the industry. And so with that, I'm going to pass over the microphone to our moderators, Shawnee and Mark Pesakovich, who will be helping us engage our panelists in this exciting conversation. Thank you so much, Shawnee. It's off to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abraham. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. Hopefully I unmuted. Welcome again to Cannabis and Technology webinar. In this presentation, we're going to be discussing the current state of the cannabis industry here in Illinois and where technology fits in the grand scheme of things. We have three amazing subject matter experts here with us that will be giving us their tech insight from their own perspectives. Before we get started, we want to, on behalf of the medical cannabis community, we want to thank all of you guys for attending this virtual event. Here at the medical cannabis community, as Abraham said, we use technology and social media to provide an inclusive and engaging hub of educational resources to empower people to discover the benefits of cannabis. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Zebra Technologies, for making this event possible. Zebra empowers those on the front line in retail, healthcare, transportation, logistics, and technology to achieve their performance edge. With Zebra, companies can delight their customers, their patients, and their business results. With over 10,000 partners across 100 countries, Zebra is committed to delivering industry-tailored solutions that help customers capture their edge. We can't forget about our partners that made this informational event happen. That would be Ignite Technology, Illinois Equity Staffing, and POSRG. Before we get started, we're just going to intro everyone that's going to be participating in the event today. First up, we have our moderator, Mark Pesakovich. Mark is the managing partner of MBM Advantage LLC. He has a firm that provides legislative and public affairs consulting, as well as community outreach, alliance building, business development, and networking services to all industries. Mark has over 25 years of public affairs, community engagement, and management experience, having previously served in leadership positions in the public health and human services sector. Over the last 5 years, Mark's lobbying has helped shape Illinois cannabis laws and regulations and has allowed him to develop an intimate understanding of the business and the politics of cannabis. He has served as a lobbyist and consultant with existing industry players, as well as companies looking to enter into the cannabis space. He currently serves as a senior advisor for the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois and is active in cannabis industry professional and patient groups. Mark also hosts the Cannabis Community Insider podcast, which is a program of the medical cannabis community media platform. Second, we have myself, Shawnee Williams. I serve as a recruiter, instructor, and consultant of Illinois Equity Staffing. My focus is really on making the cannabis industry more equitable and accessible from a human resources perspective. I'm a member of Minorities for Medical Marijuana, Chicago Normal, Illinois Women in Cannabis, the Equity Coalition, and many more organizations. I'm also a member of NCIA, and I serve on their National Human Resources Committee. Now on to the experts, those who actually know about technology. First, we have Jim Remke. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for Point of Sale Remarketing Group, POSRG. Jim Remke works to identify the hardware and service solutions that businesses in emerging markets can depend on to grow from launch to maturity. By developing long-term relationships with business owners and operators, as well as partnerships with original equipment manufacturers, Jim aims to collaborate from design to deployment to achieve the ideal solution to best serve and evolve clients' needs. Founder in 2005, POSRG is a supplier of retail store technology and support, offering reliable, cost-effective hardware and lifecycle services for point of sale, kiosks, mobile devices, data capture scanning, RFID scanners, security cameras, digital signage, servers and networking, desktop solutions, etc. From grows to dispensary, whether your business is building new facilities and requires comprehensive solutions, or if you're looking to support your existing equipment, POSRG has you covered. Tracy Powell is the founder of Blue Ventures Partners, which is a software development and IT consulting firm. He also is the founder of Blue Fund Rewards, which is a crowdfunding platform that focuses on raising capital for startup businesses and organizations located in underserved communities. As the president of Ignite Technology and Innovation, which is headquartered here in Chicago, near Pilsen. He also has a second space. He also has Blue Lacuna, which is a co-working space, and his second space that just opened up not too long ago, Momentum Coffee in the South Loop. And then we have Dwayne Roebuck. He is a recognized expert in technology within cannabis and traditional retail. He works with thousands of reseller businesses in North America to supply them with the latest hardware products and innovations. Blue Star partners with enterprise-level hardware and software solutions, along with seed-to-sale providers to maintain track and trace compliance. In his role, Dwayne strategically connects manufacturers such as Zebra Technologies, Elo, Star Micronics, LG, Hikvision, and others to cannabis software providers to assist in development and demo equipment as well as channel strategies. Although Blue Star does not supply directly to licensed operators, Dwayne serves as a trusted advisor to organizations by educating them on the importance of purpose-built equipment and technology and introducing them to certified reseller partners. Thank you guys all for participating in this event and providing your expertise. Before we ask our experts the burning questions we'd like to answers to, we'd like to start off with a really brief overview of the Illinois cannabis market. So first, we're going to just do a really quick timeline. In 2013, House Bill 1 passed in Illinois, which made medical cannabis legal to patients with qualifying illnesses like cancer or MS. As the years progressed, the list of qualifying illnesses got longer, and the state eliminated the requirement to provide fingerprints and background checks. In 2019, House Bill 1438 passed, which legalized cannabis in Illinois recreationally, which now allows anyone over 21 years old to purchase cannabis at a licensed dispensary. As we move into the month of September, it is estimated that Illinois may reach $500 million in its first year of recreational sales alone. House Bill 1 allotted for 60 licensed medical dispensaries, but currently there are only 55 licensed medical dispensaries. It also allowed for 22 cultivator licenses, and currently there are 21. The state hasn't determined if there will be potential for new licenses in the future as of yet. As far as the restrictions, there are lots of rules and regulations we know, but generally the biggest one that's different from other states is that edibles and other infused products that require refrigeration or hot handling are prohibited in Illinois. Those who have obtained medical patient cards are allowed to grow up to 5 plants at a time under House Bill 1. And currently, Illinois has 118,176 medical cannabis patients. However, by 2022, MJ Biz Daily predicts that medical cannabis sales will begin to drop year by year. Now, according to Bill 1438, that's our recreational bill, Illinois will award 75 dispensary licenses, 40 craft grow licenses, and another 40 infuser licenses in 2020. At no point will the number of retail licenses exceed 500 in the state of Illinois, and at no point will the number of craft grower licenses exceed 150. Right now, there is no cap on transportation or infuser licenses. The state of Illinois will conduct a disparity study to determine the barriers to entries for social equity applicants and other demographics that have applied for licenses. Lastly, before we just get started into the questions, where does technology fit in the grand scheme of things? Operationally speaking, technology will be what will set apart the winners from the losers once licenses are awarded. In an industry where taxes and regulatory costs munch on most profit, operating lean will provide some relief in the bottom line, especially with the most expensive line item, which is going to be your payroll. RFID can be used to quickly and accurately capture operational activities. Once a plant is tagged with an RFID tag, Growers can use a reader to scan each transaction related to that plant and create a detailed history of when it moved and who moved it, without the need for manual entry and the potential for human error. Another holy grail for the industry is the concept of a vertically integrated point of sale platform that will accommodate all of the links in the cannabis supply chain, from the initial seed to the final consumer sale. That will greatly improve the data available to growers and manufacturers, leading to more efficient development of new products. With technology in the market, every step of the process is now guided and automated. So you can get the personal satisfaction of growing your own cannabis without the extreme learning curve it takes to reach a quality harvest, even if you don't have access to a garden or outdoor space. Technology and genetic mapping is enabling producers to develop entirely new application for how these plants are grown, which will allow us to have many more options and far greater control over the kinds of products appearing on the market. Lastly, modern genomics might be the key to unlocking the plant's ultimate potential. Several leading cannabis growers are engaging in efforts to sequence the cannabis sativa's DNA, assembling a clear blueprint for how the plant generates its collection of chemicals within. And now that we've kind of given you guys an overview, we're going to hop into questions. Mark, if you want to get us started.
Good morning, and thank you everybody for joining us. I guess I just want to get started by asking all our panelists how their professional careers intersected the cannabis industry. It's sort of like when we talk about, there are lots of webinars on lots of topics. So, law, accounting, technology, but when you add the and cannabis exotic to it, it becomes sort of a different story. And so I like to start by figuring out how people came to this industry, how they fit in. And that's also an opportunity, I think, for everybody to talk about why this particular piece, the technology, is so important for this industry. So why don't we get started with Tracy, go to Dwayne, and then Jim.
Great. It's good to be here. Yeah, absolutely. For me, as a technology-based organization, and also running what we call intentional workspaces, Blue Lacuna, which is our largest space, it's about 10,000 square feet. Our main objective by building Blue Lacuna was to create a space for young startup businesses, upcoming businesses that also wanted to focus on technology. So obviously when the cannabis opportunities came, particularly on the social equity areas, we were kind of poised already to have a physical space, but also in our space, developers and other technology professionals who could actually start to think about how to do what they already do and apply it to the cannabis space. So really that's how I got into really dealing with cannabis, because quite a few people actually who went for the social equity licenses are domiciled in my space, and that's how I got it.
Welcome, Dwayne.
Oh, thank you for having me here today. My affiliation with cannabis actually began prior to professional, dabble with it in college. Some say they didn't inhale, I did. But as I moved into the professional space, that was something I had to leave behind. I had often fantasized what it would be like if I were around when Prohibition started, when alcohol was legalized. And in a lot of ways, I see, the legalization of cannabis and very similar to alcohol. And so about 4.5, 5 years ago, my company, they reached out to me to look at some, new areas that we could enter into. And cannabis was one that I thought was intriguing and had the potential to, bring about a significant, revenue growth within our industry. Our company, we're globally the largest distributor of point of sale equipment. And so from my perspective, cannabis is very similar to traditional retail minus the regulations, some things there. And so I looked at it as an opportunity to get into this industry to help, you know, people who are coming up with licenses, dispensary owners, growers, and processors, to educate them so that each of them have a substantial investment in this industry, and, you know, educate them so that they make the right decision from a technology perspective the first time, and utilize technology that would help them, that would, you know, grow as their business grows. So that's pretty much how I got into it. You know, it's an emerging arena. It's one that's very exciting, and I'm happy to be doing this work and to be on this panel with you guys.
Great, thanks. Welcome, Dwayne. And just to interject, people ask me, well, how long have you been involved with cannabis? And I know what they're asking, but generally my answer to them is, well, since I was 14 years old. So I follow you there. And Jim, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here speaking today. And yeah, I can say the same. You know, I've had a personal interest for quite a while. And, you know, once got involved in the professional world, was always just trying to find a way, you know, to look for things that would help us with emerging technologies, with emerging business, matching the two together, business development. That's kind of where I work mostly. So when I saw this opportunity happening with cannabis, I thought, well, I'm going to start reaching out to some partners and see who is actually seeing what I'm seeing, which is I see this developing into a new industry that's actually going to be, you know, matured after a certain amount of time, not just the stigmatized industry that it was originally. So when I reached out to some partners, there were very few who were willing to say, yeah, I'm interested in pursuing that industry, but some did. And, you know, Zebra was one, Blue Star Distribution was our only distributor that was interested, and a handful of others, but not very many. Most were very afraid to enter this space. And so now, obviously, we're all seeing this industry mature. And so more and more people are starting to want to, you know, get into the space. But it was just nice to know that there were some people early on that were thinking kind of what I was thinking, like, let's help, let's get in here, let's introduce some technologies that we feel like we can really help these businesses out with, kind of set themselves apart, make them a differentiator in the space.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jim. And just wanted to make sure to check in with Shawnee and remind her that she's the boss and the traffic cop here. So let us know if we have any questions or comments online we need to tune into. But I think a good place to start is just an observation that as I work with lots of companies that are applying for cannabis licenses of all sorts, you know, there's sort of an understanding that, yeah, we're going to have to buy some cash registers and computers and printers at some point, but there isn't necessarily this deep understanding or research or sort of, you know, work up front to make sure that technology is integrated into every part of the application, because it's going to be integrated into every part of the business. And I think Shawnee alluded to this when she sort of talked about the role of technology in each aspect of the industry at the beginning. But I guess I'll just start by asking, maybe we can start with Jim, because he's sort of close to the ground on this, and, you know, we'll ask others to jump in. But Jim, why should people care about the technology as they start thinking about entering the industry, rather than when they're sort of, you know, at the last minute, as it were? What should they be thinking about? And really, how can someone in your position, and I think this will apply to Dwayne as well, how can you guys help an applicant? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah, so you know, when it comes to technology, obviously there should be a lot of emphasis on the budget for technology. And when it comes to budgeting for technology, I think it's important to keep in mind that commercial grade equipment there's two different, when we talk about different types of hardware, we basically can break it down to two very basic things. It's commercial grade and consumer grade. So consumer grade are things you're going to go typically to Best Buy and get, or maybe you go into Target and get. Commercial grade is things that are usually offered through distribution or through a reseller like us. And then also you can get them online at certain stores as well. But there's a big difference in those things. And there's a cost difference too, but there's a justification for the cost difference. The main factor is that you're buying something that is usually has a longer warranty and usually has, is more powerful. So you need to make sure that when you're thinking about this stuff, you're thinking about it early on and not at the last minute when you're kind of maybe at the end of your coffers or kind of trying to figure out how to scrape together things to get your technology rolled out. So important to engage people early that can help you with those solutions and make sure you're creating enough room in your budget for that.
Dwayne, what are your thoughts on that? How should people be engaging with technology in general and your portion of the space in there in particular?
I would agree with everything Jim said. I believe that a lot of people that get into this industry, they look at the grow, the hydroponics, lighting, things like that, and they pump a lot of money into that. And they don't think about, the technology across the entire supply chain, operational efficiency, and things like that that can be presented. And so, of course, some of this technology, depending upon the size of the group, wouldn't make sense. Like RFID is not going to be for everyone. It tends to be for your larger, larger grows or dispensaries, where I see people, especially those getting started in the beginning, make the most mistakes is they do what Jim said. They go on the internet, they go to Target, maybe take, advantage of a Black Friday special and pick up equipment. And that equipment may work, but it's really not designed to be used in a, in a business setting. For example, with the TV screens and things like that. A lot of those, will work, but they're not really designed or warranted to be run, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. Then you also need to factor in, like some of the units aren't closed. So in this industry, pollen, dust is prevalent, especially, when you're, in the grow and the process side. And, early on, I went out to a processor in outside of Seattle, and I noticed that they had a ton of consumer grade printers sitting on the floor. And when I spoke with them, they said that, after about 30 days max, the printers were gunked up. They can no longer use them. Who has that type of money to keep investing in something that is only going to work 30 days? When you look at, if we talk printers specifically, if you look at, say, Zebra Technologies, they're one of the leaders in this industry. They also, warranty their print heads. If you purchase their labels along with the printers, then the print heads are warranted for life. So it's really making an investment in your business and making that investment one time versus making it multiple times. Tracy,
in terms of your perspective on it, I think you have a unique and particular perspective on this. As you engage with existing cannabis businesses, but certainly those wanting to get into that business, and in particular, companies that are applying as social equity applicants, what are the practical things? So 2 questions to you, really. Number one, what are the practical things that applicants should be thinking about? Can technology help level the playing field between the big players and the new upstarts? And then very specifically to you, and maybe this is actually where you can start, how can social equity folks who are just entering this industry and perhaps entering business altogether, how can they use people like Jim and Dwayne to help them position themselves to get licenses and to succeed after they do?
Okay. I'll start with the last question, like you said. So, like, really, what we do in addition to just working with cannabis startups, social equity, tech startups, is really, the basis is really around education. This social equity thing kind of pounced on everybody, and for a period of time in our space, we probably had over 100 folks put together applications. But one of the pieces that probably was missing, because a lot of people didn't have time, was just really the education around just starting a business, education around, technology. I always look at technology as a tool, but everybody doesn't use the same tool. I'm a developer by trade, 30 years developing real estate, and every carpenter has different tools they like that work better for them or work better for the project that they're working on. And so really, for the younger companies that are getting started, they need to have a nice ramp up time of talking to people, with like Dwayne and the other guys who already are in this business, because they may have a solution for them, but then again, they may be able to suggest another solution that makes sense for them and what they're trying to do. So really, I think the part that people don't do is put enough education on the front end around technology. They'll see something, it looks cool, everybody's got great sales pitches, and then when they bring it into their facility or their organization, they see it just doesn't make sense for what they do. And so for me, what we try to do in our spaces is bring together a collaborative group of people. We have seminars, we have workshops, we have events where people can get the opportunity to start to meet people who represent different companies and see what works for them. So really, it's really about education. Education always, especially in the early stages.
So, sorry, does anybody have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead, Dwayne.
Go ahead.
I think Tracy is spot on. What I see is that a lot of people feel like, they can go out and they can do the research and they can figure out, which pieces to put in there. And it may work. I'm not going to say in every instance it doesn't. But what quickly, tends to happen is, especially if your business grows and it scales, then the decision you have to make is your time more valuable, looking into technology, for your business, or is it more valuable actually working in the cannabis industry, working on cannabis development and, getting the operational efficiencies within your organization? And so, that's where, working with guys like Tracy or Jim, who are trusted experts, when some things I do work with on my car, but I'm not going to take the engine apart or anything like that. And so, you can really use, trusted resellers to take that burden off of you. Then it becomes theirs. And so, that's what I would encourage people, to get the education, reach out, to organizations like Tracy's and Shawnee's. And then, from there, look at a long-term professional strategy, and that's often what separates the winners from the losers.
Jim, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I agree completely with both Tracy and Dwayne. To piggyback a little bit on on that, you had asked how can people leverage us as resources. If you go out and you want to look for stuff on your own, that's fine. But we're also, companies like ours are also here to show you what all your options are. And in some cases, like others had mentioned before, it might not make sense for all the businesses, but, I always like to think of when I'm making an important decision, comparatively speaking, maybe like a medical decision or something, it's like go out and get 3 opinions or greater, right? So you can do some research on your own, but you also want to, lean on the people who kind of know the industry, know what the technologies, know what you're talking about. get some information. Why does this cost? So why does that cost a lot? Tell me about the feature sets that are different and things like that. It'll help you understand how it's going to benefit your business, and then you can make a better decision for what's actually going to help you most in the long run. So that's how I kind of look at it. I think, we're here to provide information, and beyond that, obviously, yes, we can provide pricing. Companies like ours can do both of those things, but information is the most important thing, I think, for people just to have.
So, Dwayne, to get a little bit more specific in terms of the details of the subject matter, you have experience, you've seen this industry from sort of seed to sale, and you've seen the retail environment and sort of the manufacturing/wholesale environment. And can you take us through sort of just the big topic specifics that a dispensary needs to be thinking about, and sort of what are the most important attributes of the technology that they're going to be wanting in the retail environment? And then maybe also, let's say on the craft grow side, or at least in Illinois, it's a craft grow side, and you know what craft grow is. What should those folks be thinking about, in terms of their application, but certainly also beyond in terms of running the business? How do those two areas work, and what are the big things to think about?
So, the first thing that that's going to be one of the most important is going to be to connect yourself with a good dispensary software program, where in this instance, Illinois has settled on BioTrack. So something that, will feed into BioTrack, into their APIs, and report the inventory real time. That's essential, because if you don't have that, what's going to happen is you're not going to be in compliance and you're going to lose that license. I don't, know the specifics as far as, the number of missteps you get in Illinois before your license is removed, but that's important. The other thing is going to be every dispensary grower processor that I've been to, every legitimate one, has security cameras. So you're looking at Hike Vision as one that we carry. You're also going to be looking at a network infrastructure, access points, that sort of thing, so that the data can be conveyed, and I would honestly suggest cellular failover. I had an instance where one of our resellers, their dispensary customer, the ISP, the internet service provider, had a fiber cut, and so they had no internet. These guys lost $50,000 a day in sales until that internet got back up. So if you have a LTE router or something like that that's in there, for a cellular failover, it can help keep the business going. Then you look at, I would look at printers and barcode scanning, because everything in this industry has to be tagged and tracked. Whether it's on the grow side, when it goes through the process, and when it gets to the dispensary. And then, of course, right in there, equally as important as the software is the point of sale system that you're putting it on. And, that's where I encourage people to start, utilizing resources like POSRG, because those guys are going to help you out. And depending upon how your, the aesthetics of your, business, they can find point of sale terminals and things like that will help you. Two of the ones that we rely heavily on and that are advocates for this industry are Star Micronics and ELO. And so, I would say take a look at those, but definitely leverage a resource, like POSRG, because it's not that any one of them are more critical than the other, because, what ends up happening is if you don't have all of them, you're going to end up in violation. You're not going to be tracking something. I would even consider driver's license parsing scanners, so that when you come in, people can hand you their driver's license, you can scan right off the back. It populates into your software so that you don't even have to worry about, the legitimacy of an ID or something like that in there. You want to, Jim, you should probably chime in on this one.
Yep.
I didn't hear anybody say anything about pricing, which is...
Yeah, I guess one of the important things I want to talk about, which Dwayne mentioned, was software and hardware. I feel like software always, usually what we say, software leads a lot of times because people are always looking for what's the system that's going to make the business run, and that's always the software, but the software's got to run on the hardware. So it's very important to consider your hardware choices and what you're using. A lot of the stuff that is put into businesses is dependent upon the hardware because the hardware needs to be able to endure a lot of the day-to-day action. It's running for hours on end. It's being dropped. It's being used. It's being picked up and set down many times. It's running many transactions through it over and over again. If you're not getting the right piece of equipment that isn't made to handle that, it's going to just burn out on you quick. You're going to have other problems. It's going to go down in the middle of when you're in business, when you have a rush. All of a sudden you lose one lane, one POS terminal. What does that mean in business to you? I've heard people lose a lane, and that could be tens of thousands of dollars a day. So there's a lot of other things too to keep in mind. You want to have spares on site. You want to have things that you can easily swap in and out if you need to keep your business running, keep that lane up. You want to be able to have somebody who can service the hardware and accept those returns, exchanges, repairs, stuff like that. A lot of times the software companies, they don't even want to handle stuff like that. They can help. If you have a problem with the software, you can call them and you can say, hey, I need help with the software, I'm stuck. But if your printer goes down, if your terminal goes down, things like that, you need to consider who's helping with those types of situations. So those are just kind of some of the things that I think are important to keep in mind that aren't always talked about. I think you brought up about the failover is very important as well. It's the thing that goes down. You got to keep your business up and running, and it's the equipment that's going to do that.
Really
Tracy,
quick,
as you...
I have a really quick question.
Go for it.
How you guys are talking about a lot of good things that people should be looking out for, but what should they be really budgeting for things like this, depending on, I would say, either their line of business or, how big they plan to be as far as square footage?
So are you looking for a dollar amount?
At least a
A
neighborhood.
dollar amount, or what a guideline they should follow as far as coming up with a dollar amount, or a rhyme or reason?
Or get us in the neighborhood at least, right, Shawnee?
Well, I mean, here's how I kind of go about handling people that are asking me for information, quotes on hardware, because I know this industry is very budget conscious, and I try to come up with basically like a good, better, best type of thing. So I can show you what good is, and I can show you what better is, and I can show you what best is, and there's going to be different price tags with each of those. So I think the things to think about with your business is, kind of what was kind of being thrown around a little bit earlier was, am I looking to have one shop or one dispensary? Am I looking to have a handful, or am I really trying to do a multi-state operation, stuff like that? So if you want to grow into that bigger enterprise model, you need to consider some of those choices you're making with the hardware for the long run. I think no matter what, even if you're just a onesie twosie mom and pop setup, and the same thing, you gotta look at what's the investment cost over the long run versus the risk of running something that, yeah, I might have saved some money today, but what does it mean? What does it cost me if it goes out in a year or 6 months or in the middle of a 420 rush or something like that?
Dwayne, did you have something to add?
Well, I don't typically get into the pricing, but keeping it 100 with everybody. I mean, it's not going to be something that's super cheap or discounted. I mean, depending on where you are in this industry, and it's kind of hard to say because if you're a craft grower, some of the things that are going to be necessary are going to be different than somebody who's doing the processing and someone who's in the dispensary. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, I just named off all of the things that are necessary. So that's not going to be an inexpensive proposition, but I don't think that people, who are in it for the long term and in it to be successful are necessarily, looking at the cheapest solution. I mean, I often say there's a reason why, some women carry Coach purses, and no knock against Coach or anything like that. But then there's other women who carry Birkin bags. It's really, up to your personal preference, how much you can do and what the operational efficiencies that it presents. And, I can tell you right now, you're going to make the investment. It's either you make it the first time and you make it, right, or you're going to turn around and you're going to continuously keep replacing some lesser quality stuff. And before you know it, you're going to look up and you will have spent more than what you would have making that first initial investment.
Tracy, Shani, did you have something else?
I was just going to say, these are like the types of conversations that I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are here in Illinois want to know. And, here in Illinois, we're straight shooters. We want to know, like, high, low, give us something to grasp onto, because I think, we can talk about theory all day, but really it comes down to what's this going to cost me if I want to be the best at what I'm doing.
One of the things that I wanted to acknowledge actually is we have quite an audience assembled in terms of participants. I'm seeing some of the comments and names pop up, and there's some real rock stars. We have the new executive director of Illinois Women in Cannabis with us. We have the executive director and rock star for Chicago Normal, Edie Moore. We've got Pam Althoff of the Cannabis Business Association, and there's some, and Kiana Hughes, all the rock stars are out. And so one of the things, the reason why I mentioned that is because Edie actually has a really good point, and that is, and perhaps that's something that people like Jim and Wayne and Tracy do, and maybe that's even something that existing industry partners can help with, and that is sort of a high end and low end checklist of things that would be that you ought to consider and that would be helpful sort of at each price point. And I think that's actually brilliant. And I would challenge one of our industry partners to come up with something like that and put it on your website. I bet it would see a lot of traffic. So with that, and in terms of what applicants and what social equity applicants can expect and should expect in terms of technology. I guess back to Tracy, in terms of, the business plan, I think, I feel some fellowship with you, Tracy, because I think you and I have helped a fair amount of folks with their applications in general and their business plans in particular. So as far as technology goes, as far as budgeting for technology goes, what do you counsel the folks that you work with in terms of the process that they should engage in? Who should they be talking to? How do they put a budget together like that? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in a little bit behind other guys and what they said. I think like one of the most important things, and I've built so many spaces and facilities, but in the last, I would say 5 years, just building technology spaces, one of the things I've learned, one by experience, but also now just intuitively I realize the value of is going first with quality and building for growth. I would caution everybody from saying, let me just get started kind of mentality with technology, because I guarantee you, if you got a great product or a service, you're going to outgrow it really quick, or it's going to fail and it's going to cost you money. And then you're going to beat yourself up because you're trying to save $5,000 or $10,000, and now you're losing $20,000 or $30,000 a day. And so I'll give you an example. I just built a coffee and co-working space. It's about 3,000 square feet. I probably spent with networking, cameras, point of sale, Ethernet, connections, all the things you need for taking those cameras, close to $40,000 just in that small space. And so, like, really, I think somebody said, I don't know if it was Jim or Dwayne. Oh no, it was Dwayne. I think it's not going to be cheap. And I don't think you guys should look for cheap. You got to look for a quality hardware, quality software that allows you to scale. And so part of what I do when I talk to folks is make sure that when they're doing a budget, that budget it makes sense. Even if you think it's more than you wanted to spend, you know, really guys, really don't skimp on technology. I mean, it'll hurt you. So that's
And you know, like now, you know, in this post-COVID condition, you know, there are ways to be innovative, because, you know, if you look at what's going on out west, especially when it comes to cannabis, I tell people to look towards Colorado, look towards Washington, because those guys have been in it longer, and you know, they've met with technology. So, you know, now you're looking at a lot of those guys, you know, they're limiting the number of people within the dispensary. They have delivery. You know, some of the dispensaries have built drive-throughs in there. And so, you know, now it's not as much a focus per se on inside the dispensary as how do we make things contactless and make it so that, you know, because in this COVID environment, every single state, with the exception of Massachusetts, initially deemed cannabis an essential business. And so that afforded these guys to make some changes that they wouldn't have done previously. So, you know, I'm working with solutions that involve e-commerce, you know, buy online, pick up in store, buy online, pick up at curb, even cashless solutions, because, you know, credit card and debit transactions are ones where you really have to be careful. You know, I've seen dispensaries go out of business utilizing the wrong, you know, solution there. So that's why, you know, I would tell people to reach out, you know, to POSRG, reach out to Tracy, you know, those guys who can be trusted advisors to you. And you could even reach out to me. I can't sell you anything because of the way, you know, our business is set up, but I most certainly can talk through some solutions and let you know what I'm seeing, you know, that's happening in California, and, you know, Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma, you know, all of the big players.
Real quick,
I have a really quick question, and it's a burning question because I touched on it and we haven't talked about it yet. How is RFID, barcode, and QR being deployed in the cannabis industry? What other technologies are out there that we may not know about that are probably going to take over the cannabis industry in the near future? And what do these technologies allow people to do, and what benefits do they provide?
Can I start that off? So RFID, you know, initially, you know, if we look at the roadmap of the states, when it comes to recreational states, the vast majority use metric. Metric requires RFID on the cultivation side. And so a lot of people believe that that was where RFID was going to stop. You know, the ability to track and trace the plants, see where they are, which room, which stage, you know, state that they're in, and who moved those plants. You can even tag the employees, so you know Tracy, you know, grabbed this skid of sour diesel on this day at this time and moved it into a different room. So nothing, you know, as we started going, and I'm talking 4.5 years ago, now we're seeing where RFID is being developed for within the dispensary, because going in and doing the inventory tracking, especially large dispensaries, it's cumbersome and it's tedious, to say the least. And so this is a way for these guys to keep up with real-time inventory, know where it is. And in addition to that, most states require that the inventory turn over at least 90 days. Now, I've not been to a dispensary that, is able to keep product on the shelf, more than 90 days, but it's in there. And so you can utilize that RFID technology in reverse to where you can put a field in, a field in the software so that when it reaches a certain date, let's say if they're looking 45, 50 days out, they can flip the RFID reader into a Geiger counter mode, and they can walk through the store, and it will literally start pinging the closer you get to it, and then you pull that product from the back to the front. And I'm also seeing where dispensary owners are utilizing that for loss prevention because, depending on the state, people call them bud tenders or cannabis consultants. And, what makes a lot of those guys good is their love for the product. Now, like everything else, sometimes things tend to evolve and grow legs and walk their way right out of the dispensary. And that happens quite a bit. So, they're utilizing RFID to try to mitigate that. QR codes, I'm starting to see that from a payment perspective, because Visa and MasterCard and the big cards and credit cards, they will not allow a credit card transaction across their rails. And even if I would caution somebody, if you're talking to somebody and they're saying they can do it, double check it, because a lot of times what ends up happening is that they tell you they can do it. It's offshore banking or something like that, or it could be, set up as a shell, which immediately gets flagged for potential money laundering. And you can look at what's going on in California right now, where the DEA is going after some of those guys and looking into those transactions. And if you get blacklisted on one of them, when it is legal, the chances of you being able to utilize it are slim to none. So, what your more reputable places are doing is they're partnering with organizations that can do bank to bank and set up apps, kind of like a Venmo for cannabis, for lack of a better analogy. And then some of the ones that are really good, you can utilize those apps and those electronic wallets at other stores. So, I know Home Depot, Target, Panera, there are ones that work and operate within that ecosphere. So you really have one electronic wallet that can scale across, potentially scale across your cannabis as well as your traditional retail needs, if that helps.
Absolutely. You hit on just about everything. I wanted everyone to really understand RFID because I know you guys are the experts on that. But you mentioned something about banking, and I think Adrian Johnson had a question about banking that kind of relates to what you were already talking about. I just want one of you guys to kind of delve deeper into it. Could you address where development of banking technology in cannabis retail is, just in case legislation changes banking regulation?
Well, right now it's on pause. A couple of weeks ago, the CEO of Chase, either the largest or one of the largest banking groups, he was talking about his disdain for, how things haven't moved within the cannabis industry. As long as it's still listed on the Schedule I, you're not going to be able to do it, federally where anything is FDIC insured. It's going to be difficult. Now, what has happened is you have states like Colorado, which have propped up state banks that don't have FDIC insurance. And so they've started working with the cannabis industry because, there's a lot of cash moving through here. Early on, I remember about 5 years ago, the first dispensary I went to, as I was pulling in, this van and these guys, it looked like a SWAT team, were coming out. And I thought the place was getting robbed. And, I got in my car and just, got out of there. I went to another dispensary and told them what was going on. And they were saying, that's how, they get the money, into banks and things like that. So, states are looking at their own independent, solutions similar to COVID, where, if you don't have a federal response, then people are going to find a way. And so what I've seen that seems to be working and seems to be legit is some of these e-commerce or bank-to-bank type transfers. And, we're kicking the tires on a few of them right now. I have a couple of, dispensary groups that I know that have launched some and are having success. So I would tell, you could reach out to me. I can point you in a direction. That's not my area of expertise, but I do see that going on.
Shani, anything else?
Let's do one more Q&A, and then we'll kind of go back to the questions and go back to Q&A. I have a question here from Edie. Edie is the executive director of Chicago Normal. She says, are there any preliminary or underground discussions about blockchain?
Can I take that?
Sure. Whoever the answer.
Okay, so I am hearing conversations around blockchain, more so on the hemp side, because on the hemp side of things, what's happened is where it varies from the cannabis industry is that, in the cannabis industry, when the plant goes to the processor, that's it. They start planting, again, using the clones and getting that going. On the hemp side, however, the if you're doing organic hemp in particular, a lot of the growers want the biomass back. And so, they're looking at leveraging blockchain as well as RFID to get that biomass back after the CBD is extracted out of it, because, hemp can be used for textiles. And then, you're going to hear about this real soon if you haven't, but hemp is also being utilized in building materials as well as road infrastructure for hempcrete. And one of the benefits of that is it's more tolerant to heat and cold than concrete is. And it's one of the few products where even in that state, it reduces greenhouse gas emissions. So you're going to see states that are going to start offering tax incentives for people who are building utilizing hempcrete. From the cannabis perspective, the talks, until it's federally legalized, I don't really think, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't believe that there is a true need for blockchain, because what's grown in state has to be utilized in state. And so as we move into a more federal arena, then what's going to happen is you're going to see larger grows, larger distribution networks, and then it'll be what they're talking about as far as agriculture, where instead of, looking at TV, waiting on a recall or something like that, they will actually be able to track. If you look at romaine lettuce, they've had a number of instances where those have been recalled. Well, the plan is to someday be, like once they identify E. coli from this farm, they're able to take it all the way through and determine, hey, Shani or Tracy, they purchased this. And so they could even, if it's a loyalty program or something like that you purchased, they can proactively reach out to you and say, hey, we're going to credit you this amount for what you've grown, or throw that away, bring any leftover in. Because, like anything else you grow, you have mold, pesticides, and things like that. Right now, the feds aren't really paying that much attention as far as the quantities of each, but that will come in the future. That's a great question.
Tracy, I thought you might have had something to add to that question.
Well, I hit on a couple of my points, but that's fine, because I was just going to say in general, there are quite a few developers and technology folks coming up with all types of blockchain-based solutions around just about every aspect of cannabis, from just tracking to payment solutions to security to, just IDing. And so I think in the future, but not right now, we're going to see blockchain underlying just about everything. But I agree with Dwayne right now, just because one, the technology still is very young and still experimental, but also because of the difficulty with cannabis from a legal perspective, it's going to be very hard for those young tech companies to raise capital that they need to really build out the kind of solutions on a technology side that you need. So that's
Great, thank you. And we're about to we're about to go into our Q&A session, but Jim Remke hasn't sort of spoken in a while, and I wanted to make sure to touch back with Jim and get any sort of final thoughts and reaction to anything that you heard here. And then I'm just going to have one final question after that, and I'm actually going to flip the tables, and the first person I ask that question is going to be Shawnee. So Jim, take it away and close it up, and then I'll close it up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to get back to Shawnee's question, which seems to be the question a lot of people are having, is cost and price and budget and all these things like that. You know, it is case by case. It's something we can definitely help out with, so you can plan ahead. The biggest thing is get ahead of it, contact somebody so you can get some pricing on the commercial grade stuff, the enterprise grade stuff, and then you know you can go out and collect your other pricing as well, and you can figure out what's going to work for you or what's going to work for your budget. But getting the information about what the differences are is going to be the biggest key factor. The other thing you guys got to keep in mind is there's a warranty. So with the warranty, on consumer grade equipment, maybe it's a year. And a lot of the warranties become void if you put that consumer grade piece into a business setting. When it comes to commercial grade or enterprise grade hardware, you're looking usually around 3-year warranty with an opportunity to extend that to 5 years. I've even seen some OEMs with 10-year warranties, believe it or not, on their hardware. And then, you know, the other thing you got to keep in mind, a lot of people don't think about, is you get the equipment and it's a box sitting on your counter. Who's installing it? How are you getting that installed? Have you done a site survey? Have you looked at and thought about where all this stuff is going and how it's going to get there? How the cable's getting run there? How you know, everything's going to integrate together? The printers are plugging in with the hardware. Is it going to work? Are the drivers loaded? Is the software you need and the operating system you need loaded onto that equipment? These are all things that are very important to think about ahead of time, because when you get the box there, and if you just bought it from a store, or if you just bought it online, 9 times out of 10, if you call that store up, they're not going to be able to help you. They're not going to, you know, and they're not going to be there to support you with the setup and the installation. And then one last thing I'd like to say too is getting back to that good, better, best model. I've recently made contact with somebody who can offer leases, it sounds like financing. So they've done work with groups out of Colorado and California. So this is, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity here to look at different ways to price out a budget. So it could be, let's look at ways, let's look at what it would cost all up front, all in. Let's look at ways to spread out that cost, stuff like that. So I'm just starting talks with this group. They sound like they're pretty legit. So if anyone, you know, is interested in something like that, I think that could be very beneficial to these groups that are looking to, you know, expand their dollars as much as possible.
Hey, Mark, can I say one thing before you move on, which I don't know that this has been made, you know, clear, is that Tracy and Jim are people who, you know, their organizations are in your neighborhood, in your area. And so that's something to definitely think about. You know, oftentimes people will go with someone who's a little bit cheaper, and then it's a national footprint versus a local footprint. And so what happens, you know, that's cool from a pricing perspective, but what happens, you know, when your point of sale terminal goes down? Then they're going to have to ship that to you. They're going to have to, you know, you're going to be looking at days where, you know, you've got 2 industry experts right here out of the Chi-Town area that can help anyone and, you know, get a turnaround pretty quickly. So, you know, that's something that's powerful, and it's not something that I see in a lot of markets. And, you know, people should really think about that.
Yeah, I just want to say something really quick on that, on Dwayne and on Jim. Support. I'm telling you guys, you're going to be calling support probably at least in the beginning once a week. And so when you choose a product or service, make sure they got a great support team make sure if you can get one that's 24 hours, that's great. I'll just tell you, you know, I'm running a small coffee space and I'm using a shopkeep as the company, as the point of sale company, and the Clover. And I guarantee you, I call them like at least once a week, something goes on. Updates, upgrades, all that stuff is going to be happening. It can affect your business. You know, if you don't do an update, your equipment may not work. So you really, really need to choose companies based on reports. All right.
Well, thank you, Tracy. And by the way, I can't wait until we do these meetings in person again, because it sounds like we have a perfect large gathering location with Tracy's first gig, and now this coffee shop and co-working space. Sounds like a great opportunity, great place to meet face to face also. So I'll impose myself on you when we get there, Tracy.
Cannabis and coffee.
That's right. Thank you. And you know, sooner or later, maybe cannabis in coffee, but that's a different webinar. But I did want to close on one topic here, and that is industry responsibility. I think for those of us who are involved with the current industry, and you know, in my intro early on, Shawnee mentioned that I am affiliated with the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois. One of the things that I wanted to ask, and I'm actually going to start with Shawnee and then ask Tracy to weigh in as well, is what should the current players be doing? I mean, obviously the large entities and the smaller entities, but the current license holders who've been in business now, how can they most responsibly help people trying to figure this out right now? I mean, what do we need? Do we need, you know, sort of the ability, you know, should we be getting the state to allow current players to give tours to potential social equity applicants so they can see how it's done? How can the current industry, the people making money, help those looking to get in? Shawnee?
So I have a lot of answers to that question, but the first would be not assume that their ideas are what everyone's looking for. So what I mean by that is a lot of existing operators, they want to help, but they don't know how. And so they come up with their own ideas internally. And a lot of times when you're just talking to applicants in the community, like Deb already just said, we need a checklist. So people are really already out here communicating what social equity applicants and applicants that are from disproportionately impacted areas really need for support. And it really doesn't cost much. Like the checklist that Deb is talking, this is just one example, but the checklist that Deb is mentioning, I've heard a lot of applicants talk about checklists across the board in all departments, not just technology. And that doesn't cost really anyone anything. And so when I talk to like strategic partners and people like my clients and people that are willing to give that information up, they give it willingly because they didn't even think of that, right? It's just not on their mind. They think that kind of throwing some money and having a community event or something like that is more impactful, but really just kind of paying it forward sometimes is more impactful than anything else.
Thank you. Tracy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my thoughts on it, like I say, it always goes back to, I'm working with folks in our accelerator program and things. It's really about being a very kind of intuitive, but kind of aggressive potential entrepreneur in this space where we realize that, you know, a lot of the bigger, more established companies, they're going to be your competitors in some sense. So you may or may not be able to get the kind of information you need directly from them. But I agree, like there are other people in other states and other places that aren't competing in Illinois. You know, we've had about 6 or 7 months, or is it about 6 months under COVID. I hope everybody wasn't just sitting around. You know, this was a great time. I mean, it was a difficult time, obviously, but it was a great opportunity for entrepreneurs to really start to build up relationships, have conversations like this, like we're having today, and really just try to find out best practices around the business that they want to be in. When I decided to go into the coffee business, I met with 4 or 5 coffee operators in Chicago and partnered with one that has 8 locations on the north side. Really a lot of stuff is not new. And I would just encourage the entrepreneurs, the folks that are waiting for a decision on their license, to not be shy about like trying to get best practice and understanding about the business that they want to go in. So,
Hey, Mark, can I say a couple things on this? Because
Absolutely.
I tend to deal more national than any specific region. Some of the places that I lean to for industry knowledge, I can tell you right now, getting out there and, post-COVID, once we get past this, going to some national shows, what I would tell you, if you have to choose one national show to attend, go to MJ BizCon, which is the largest cannabis show. It's typically held in December at the Las Vegas Convention Center. You're going to meet pretty much everybody in the industry there. If you can do 2 others, NCIA, the National Cannabis Industry Association, puts on a good show, as well as there's one called the Cannabis Conference, which is put on by GIE Media. Now, the other thing I would do is for your own personal edification and enlightenment, some periodicals to look at would be Cannabis Dispensary Magazine, Cannabis Business Times, Marijuana Venture, Ganjapreneur is a good one, and then MJ Biz. They also have an MJ Biz Daily, and most of these guys have a digital version that is free. So, you can find out what's going on in Colorado, what's happening across the country. When you get in person, I've not had the pleasure of attending a Illinois Women in Cannabis show, but, Jim and everyone else has told me really good things about that. And I'm looking forward to, when this is over, being able to fly into Chicago and catch one of those, if I can make the date sync up. But, get out and talk to other people. And when you get to the shows, don't be scared to ask those guys at the booth questions. What I've found in this industry is most people are more than happy to share with you 90% of what they do because they want to see this industry grow and flourish. And, especially right now when different states aren't really competing against each other, it's really good. So I'd say take advantage of that, because who knows how the landscape will be once it changes federally. You can always hit me up. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LeafWire. So, feel free to connect with me and, I'll do my best to steer you in a position. But, from everything I've heard, you guys have a great starter ecosphere in Illinois Women in Cannabis. That's one of the things that really disappoints me is that I've not been able to get up there yet and attend one of those. But hopefully, after 2020 is over, I'll be able to do that.
We do have a great infrastructure in place, and we're trying to get better between medical cannabis community, Illinois Women in Cannabis, Chicago NORML, Illinois NORML. There are a lot of resources, and I think we're all glad to, there's room for everybody, and there's room for even more folks to step in and help, and it's wonderful to have the industry here and our sponsor Zebra as allies in this cause. So at this point, I think we're well into the Q&A time, and I'm going to turn it over to Shawnee. And actually, Shawnee, I'm sorry to do this, but I can't hold it any longer. I'm stepping to go to the bathroom for a sec. So there you go. You're it.
Thank you, Mark. All of the information.
Human drama.
Awesome. So I'm going to hit some of these Q&A questions. I have one from Sean. It was a lot earlier. He said, will the technology that tests for cannabis potency and terpenes improve in the future? Do you guys have anything to say about like home grow and testing?
Yeah, I have a buddy who used to have a home grow in Seattle, and he has some equipment that some of the craft growers are utilizing, and I know his company they sell that. I tell you, whoever that is, like hit me up on LinkedIn LeafWire, or send me your information. I'll chase it down and at least point you in the direction. That's not my area of expertise, but I can get you some answers.
Awesome. Amy has a question about Oklahoma, actually. She wants to know if you guys are doing anything, if at all, in the Oklahoma market. She'd love to learn more about those angles in different markets.
Oklahoma is a bit of a difficult market because, for lack of a better analogy, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West there. There doesn't seem to be any limitation on the number of dispensaries who can set it up. It's a lot of smaller dispensaries there. I do have some software partners that are big in the Oklahoma space, so depending on what she's, I don't know exactly what they're looking for in terms of emulating, the Oklahoma market. I'd be surprised if that can continue to operate the way it is much longer, but you never know. But what I can do is I can put you in touch with, some of the software guys if that's what you're looking for, as well as, tell you about some of the hardware that, some of the successful dispensaries are utilizing in Oklahoma. So hit me up on LinkedIn, LeafWire, or, shoot the info to Shawnee, and, I can get you in touch.
And I was going to say, if you feel comfortable putting like the corporate email or your email that you use for, your business in the chat, feel free.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about hardware is hardware doesn't discriminate upon geography. It'll work anywhere as long as you have the right software and everything hooked up. So we have a customer too, that are medical, obviously, and then the hardware will work anywhere.
Awesome. There was a question I saw, and it was a good question, but it keeps kind of pushing me out. Okay. Technology is evolving based on need and conditions like COVID. How do we factor in adaptability and change in our tech design and purchasing decisions? That was from Deb Dillon.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Shawnee?
So how do we basically take things like COVID, things that we weren't expecting, into account when it comes to our purchasing decision and the way we operate?
Want me to start this and you can finish it, Jim?
If you want. Look, I see you have your microphone off mute, so I thought you were ready to jump on it. Go for it.
Oh, I don't want to step on your toes, man. So, I kind of spoke to it earlier. What people are doing now, or at least what I'm seeing in some of the states, is people are utilizing, they're moving towards a kiosk and kiosk platforms, as well as, contactless payments, that sort of thing, because, people just aren't comfortable, being around other people. And so, what I would say is look towards, like buy online, pick up in store type solutions. I've pre-COVID, and I haven't traveled, I've been kind of stuck in the house for the past 6-7 months, but pre-COVID, I was already seeing where they were having VIP lines for people who had already, made the purchase. They know what they want. And so instead of you going in and having to actually go into the full dispensary, you could just walk into, like a VIP line, similar to the movie theaters where you're waited on right away. You get your product and you go. Now I've seen where they're utilizing mobile handheld computers and tablets, and again, I would advocate for, enterprise, because even on the consumer grade ones, if you put a ruggedized sleeve on there, you'd be surprised what cement can do to some things. But they're utilizing that for, either buy online, pick up at the curb, where they can come out there and, process, depending on how they have it set up, from an e-commerce perspective, they could process the payment, scan the QR code, give you your product, and it's a real simple transaction. A lot of them are moving towards utilizing tablets and, small kiosks, or setting tablets up as a kiosk to where you can get educational content off of the tablet instead of, waiting for, someone to tell you, like what the attributes of a particular strain or, tincture or something like that are. So they're really moving towards a more, self-service, self-sufficient type model. And the good thing about it is a lot of the equipment that you might, purchase, if you utilize, say POSRG, they actually have, tablet, like terminals to where you can utilize a tablet as a point of sale system. And then, with a simple, twist of a key, you can pop it off and you can walk around the, the store. So if the dispensary is crowded, you can walk through and do some line busting solutions and things like that.
Jim, did you have anything?
I think Dwayne hit most of it. I think just to kind of emphasize some things I've seen, the ability to place orders, to look at the selection on kiosks or tablets and kind of place your order and then get called up to pay for it, those types of things. The line busting, we're starting to see more of those types of things. But yeah, Dwayne touched on most of those topics there.
Awesome. So I have a question from one of my fellow Olive Harvey cannabis instructors, Mila Marshall. She says, what are your thoughts about helping prepare new professionals, students,
Oh no, did we lose her?
I don't know if it's my connection or hers. I couldn't hear the question at all.
No worries. Well, she gets some internet back.
Can you guys hear me?
There you are.
Now we can. We couldn't hear anything you said.
So the question,
you were speaking Transformer to us.
Question. The question is from a fellow Olive Harvey cannabis instructor. She teaches cannabis classes at Olive Harvey. She says, what are your thoughts about helping the new professionals to keep in mind the learning curve they're going to experience in the cannabis landscape when it comes to technology?
I can just say something real quick. I mean, I thought, something that was really helpful when I was in school, which was a while ago, was we actually had industry professionals come in and speak to the classes and kind of give us a lot of insights as to what's really going on in the real world, regardless of what your field is. So my suggestion would be, if they wanted to try to reach out to just any professional, any aspect of the industry and say, hey, do you want to come and talk to some students and just get the questions going from the students, and they'd probably fire back, get a good conversation going. And then at that point, it's kind of like the students get information. The industry representative is almost kind of even recruiting, but getting information out there so people are kind of prepared to understand what's really going on in these settings.
From my perspective, post-COVID, I'm willing to do whatever. I can, fly into Chicago and, talk to classes, whatever it means. I think each of us that are on this panel are committed to, social equity. We're all minorities. And so, well, minus one, but Jim. We're all committed to doing what it takes. I mean, just keeping it 100 with everyone. Cannabis is something where I've had family members lose scholarships and things like that, and really, mess their life up. And to see now that people are out here making money off of it, I believe that each of us are committed to, helping, this community, the Black and brown community, as well as women, to make sure that, we're armed. And I've even introduced Shawnee to some of our software guys, who are equally committed. So, I would tell you, I know we say this all the time and very few of us do it. Spend your money with the people who are, trying to help you, instead of, you save $1, go out and pick up a cup of coffee from Tracy. I've not met him in person, but he seems like the type of guy who, you know, while I'm sitting there getting that latte, if he's there, you know, hey, Tracy, let me chop it up with you. Let me run it by you. And he seems like a down enough dude to do that. And that's how we have to be as a collective. You know, instead of, you know, sitting there hoarding the information and trying to make sure, you know, one person succeeds over the other. If we all succeed, and, you know, someone said it earlier, there is plenty of opportunity in this industry. The cannabis industry right now is one of the few that is on pace to grow 40% year over year. And that's amidst this COVID environment. So there's plenty of revenue out there for everybody. We just need to come together as a community. And, you know, I tell you, go get that latte and get some knowledge from Tracy while you're there. Go up to Wakanda. You know, when they can allow you in there, POSRG has a very nice facility. You know, go up there, you know, check them out. Wakanda forever, utilize the resources that you guys have around you. Attend those Illinois Women in Cannabis shows. You know, I can't say it enough. I'm really disappointed that I have not been to one. So I'm looking forward to, as soon as I can travel, that's high on my list. So I'll shut up.
So I think Deb Dillon really touched on this, and I just want to address it a few times. She's asked, is there something that we can put together, a list of some sort for decision makers, for them to go through, things that they should keep top of mind as lists of priorities? And to address that, I'm just going to say there will be future events with these group of gentlemen, with more providers, actually like technology service providers and manufacturers, so that we can start talking about things like this. So I just wanted to address that, Deb. I know you're also an instructor at Chicago State, and so I'm sure you're asking these questions because you want your students to know. Someone had a question, it was anonymous. It said, many applicants can find the equipment for their application. That's not the problem. But post-license then requires integration and compliance. Do the panelists that are here on this event provide that type of full service integration and onboarding? So integration and compliance.
Well, from a hardware perspective, when we talk about integration, we talk about integrating the components of the hardware or the peripherals to the main base of the terminal. So in those regards, we do plenty of integration and stuff like that. If you're talking more about like a software development side thing, obviously that'd be a different company, but we work hand in hand with software companies all the time to make sure that when they get everything integrated from a compliance standpoint, that we're there to back them up with the hardware, and that everything is going to be working and running smoothly and integrated the way it needs to be from that standpoint.
What I'll make a commitment to on this call, and Jim's probably going to kill me for this one, but I'll make a commitment that I'll get with Jim and his team, and we'll get with one of his software partners and try to develop a good, better, best scenario regarding enterprise equipment that, you know, Deb can, you know, at least ballpark it and, you know, have an idea. Now, what we'll probably do is, we'll do it by like one point of sale lane, because we're going to have to separate things out. You know, security cameras, point of sale lanes, things like that. That way they could take that and they can figure out how they could scale it, you know, based off of their individual dispensary needs. So I'll make that commitment. Shani, you know, I'm going to get Brian engaged, and, you know, we'll get that.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Thank you guys for being good corporate citizens. It's appreciated.
Yes, we appreciate it. So this is my last question. What's the biggest lesson you guys have learned from your cannabis clients?
You know, I mean, just, it sounds like we're broken record really, but you know, just don't use the technology as a place to cut the corners. You know, I mean, it's just it doesn't work really. You know, from my perspective, our core competency is point of sale. So that means where the sales taking place, where basically cash registers is what a lot of people would just call that. You know, so by the time, especially if you're full vertical, you spend all the money on the grow, you spend all the money on, you know, whatever you're doing for processing or whatnot. And you get to the dispensary and you're building out and you're doing real estate and all this stuff. And then who knows where your budget's at? And all of a sudden you're going, we got to put cash registers in here. It's not the place to skimp out. I've heard a lot of nightmare stories about, you know, people using cheap scanners that take 10 times to press the button to work. And I've heard things about, you know, TVs from Target to make the digital signage work, and they you know, fall apart in the middle of the day, and now people are asking you for a menu, and you got to go print one up in the back or something. You know, Dwayne's mentioned a lot of things like that. You know, obviously Tracy as well understands it from a business owner perspective. That's probably, you know, the biggest thing that I would say in regards to, you know, technology and the cannabis space.
What I would say, you know, without beating it over the head, you know, in the consumer versus enterprise, I would say collaboration and learning how to work together. You know, and that's, again, something I've seen in this industry. The ones who do really well are the ones who, you know, build a network, cultivate the relationship, and they collaborate. You don't have to share all of your secret sauce, but I think, you know, we've shown that there's plenty of opportunity for everyone in here. You know, you guys in Illinois have a tremendous opportunity because, you know, the way, you know, nationally, you know, we're all looking at Illinois as the next big state to come in. And it's actually disappointing that, you know, COVID hit because it's pushed back the distribution of licenses and craft grows and things like that. So it's really minimized the impact that everyone knows Illinois will have. And so, you know, I would say cultivate relationships and collaborate, you know, reach out, attend some of these industry events that these guys are doing. You know, I'm often in LA talking about the Illinois women in cannabis, and I've never been to a show. It's just, I hear that much about them. I'm like, it's gotta be good, you know, because everybody's telling me about it. It's like all directions point to Illinois. So, you know, take advantage of that, and don't be afraid to share and help one another out.
Yeah, I would just jump in there. You know, I want to beat it a little bit on the head. Like, I just feel like technology is the equalizer. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm going to use coffee example because I've been doing this for about 6 months now. Starbucks closed down every one of their locations, not just because of COVID, because they didn't have a mobile ordering system. And they closed them down to set up a mobile ordering system. Smaller coffee shops were able to bring technology in. We used an app called Joe Coffee app to then start to open up and do mobile coffee orders. So for the last 5 months, I've been selling coffee without any competition with Starbucks, which is literally around the corner. I'm just saying, I use that example to say that invest in technology and also and look to use that as a way to equalize you to the bigger guys, but also make you better and be able to nuance what you do, what makes you different as a dispensary or a craft grower, or whatever your goals are in the space. You don't have to be like the big guys, you just be good. And I think that's what technology has given us, this opportunity. So take advantage of it. Don't keep on it.
That is perfect, and it looks like we're actually over our time. So I'm going to go ahead and thank our audience, thank our panelists, thank our sponsor at Zebra for making this event possible. I appreciate you guys all taking the time to come here today and educate both me and our entire audience on the nuances and complexities of technology in the cannabis industry. I think that this has been a super educational event, and based on all the questions that we've gotten, I think that there's room for an additional follow-up. So I'm excited to see if we're able to put another episode together so that we could continue these conversations. With that said, before we all go, we could start with Jim, Dwayne, and Tracy, as well as Shawnee and Mark at the end. If you could please let our audiences know where they can find you, how they can contact you, what your website, phone number, and email might be, so that our members could get in touch if and when they need you.
Yeah, we are at posrg.com. I'll put it in the chat box there, and I put my email in there earlier. It's jremke, so just my first initial, my last name, at posrg.com. Feel free to email me at any time with any question. I'm happy to help. Just like I said, information is important in technology, so if whatever I can do to help. And my number, if you'd like it as well, is 847-526-9650. That's my office number. Call me there at any time.
Cool. I put my email out there earlier. It's the letter D, ROEBUCK. If you're old enough, you might remember when Sears Roebuck was in Chicago. So, and it's D Roebuck at Bluestar, BLUESTARINC.com. You can also hit me up on LinkedIn. Like I said, I'm on LeafWire, and if anyone doesn't know what LeafWire is, it's kind of like it's becoming the LinkedIn for the cannabis industry. You know, as soon as this COVID thing is beat, you know, I'll be out on the road hitting the shows. So if you see me at a show, please come up, you know, holler at me. I'm a nice guy, I promise. You know, and you know, let's talk, let's chat, and you know, let's see how we can work together.
So, Dwayne, all folks from Chicago know about the Sears building, the Sears Roebuck building. Okay, so don't try to, you know, belittle us. We remember, even though, you know,
Sears isn't even around anymore.
I know.
There's going to be a generation that doesn't even remember that.
We still go by the Sears Tower, though. We don't call it the Willis Tower. So when you said that, everybody was like, duh, we know. Come on, man. Anyways.
Oh, okay.
You would know that if you came here more. You got to come here more from Ohio.
I was just checking.
I do come there, and the water taxi lets me off at the Willis Tower. I didn't even know what that was.
That's the Sears Tower. Yeah. And Mika says her mom still owes Sears. I'm pretty sure my mom does too, a credit card. So, yeah.
What you talk about Willis Tower?
Well, you better hurry up and use it because it won't be around much longer.
So my name is Shawnee Williams. I put all my information there. I work with Illinois Staffing. I know nothing about technology except BioTrack THC and training on it. So other than that, please stick to the experts. I specialize in human resources and recruiting. But like I said, stick to these men. These gentlemen know about technology, and that's why we wanted you guys to really be introduced to them so you can understand a little bit more about it. And we are going to have future events getting a little bit more detailed into technology.
And it's Mark Pasikovich. My email is in the chat, and it was great to be here with all of you.
All right. And Tracy Powell, I also put all of my contact information in there. A lot of you guys I see a lot of folks that's here that know about the Blue Lacuna. I know Shawnee's organization are members of Blue Lacuna. So like a lot of folks know about us. So you can find us at thebluelacuna.com and of course, ignitetechnology.org. And I also put my email address in there, and we will be opening soon.
Hey, Tracy, tell them where they can get a good cup of coffee, man.
You can get a good cup of coffee at Momentum Coffee and Co-working that's open today at 2119 South State Street in Chicago. We are doing mobile apps too, so you guys, you know, you don't have to stand in line. You can do that mobile app. Just come, the coffee be waiting for you. Thanks.
Winter's coming, so you know you'll want something to warm you up.
All right, and with that, Mark, you're up next.
Oh, as I mentioned, my email is in the chat comments. It's mark at mbmadvantage.com, and thanks all.
Fantastic. With that, thank you guys all for coming. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you all again. See you guys later.
Thank you.